Hey everybody and welcome to another review, and today we're going to be taking a look at a LEGO Ninjago set. This is Lloyd's Elemental Power Mech. This set comes with 253 pieces and is recommended for ages 7 and up. And we're going to start things off by taking a look at the minifigures that come in the set, starting with Lloyd. I already have a couple of copies of this guy, but it doesn't take away from the fact that this is a really good looking minifigure. I think he has a really detailed chest and leg print, and I love the detail of the sash that wraps around the character's waist. And while I would have liked to have seen some dual molded legs and arm printing on this figure, I don't necessarily think it hurts the overall design. And as we start to make our way around to the back of the minifigure, you can see that he comes with a relatively detailed back print as well. And I do like the detail of the gold lettering found at the top of the back print. I think that's a really cool and neat touch. Another aspect of this figure that I really enjoy is the dual molded hood piece that this character wears. I think the design of the mold that LEGO has created is really strong, and it being dual molded and being two different colors is a really nice touch as well. Lloyd does come with two different facial expressions. The first here depicts him wearing a mask with a very agitated facial expression. And if we spin the figure around to the back, his second facial expression depicts him not wearing a mask and he has a more stern look. Here's what Lloyd looks like when he's wearing his hood and his second facial expression without the mask, and he also comes with two golden katanas as weapons for accessories. The next minifigure we're going to be taking a look at is a first for my collection. This is Nia. And overall this minifigure is very similar in design to the Lloyd minifigure we just took a look at. However, I do like the printed detail of her red sash. And just like with Lloyd, this figure doesn't come with any dual molded legs or arm printing, but again, I don't think that's necessarily too big of a deal. And as we start to make our way around to the back of Nia, you can see that she does come with a back print, but we'll be taking a little bit of a better look at that once we remove her shoulder pad. But I do like the inclusion of the shoulder pad because it does make her a little bit different from the Lloyd minifigure, and I do think the gold complements her blue design very well. And while she is similar to the Lloyd minifigure in design, I still think this is a pretty good looking minifigure. The gold piece on Nia's back also acts as a sword sheath for her golden katana. And I think this is a really cool design choice, and I think that when the sword is sheathed into the back of the figure, it looks really cool and good overall. Removing the sheath in Nia's mask, we get a good look at her second facial expression as well as her detailed back print. And again, I really like that gold lettering printing found at the top of the back of the figure. And as we make our way back to the front of the figure, we get a better look at her second facial expression, which depicts her wearing her mask. Lastly, here's a quick look at Nia when she has her other facial expression with the hood on, and I do like the design choice of her beauty mark being visible through the hood. The last minifigure that is included in this set is Cinder, which is personally my favorite out of the three minifigures that are included in this set. I think Cinder has a very good and detailed chest and leg print, and I like how they're lined up perfectly, moving from one piece to the next. I also like the fur collar piece that is included with this minifigure, as I feel like it complements Cinder's design very well and overall just makes the minifigure a little bit more interesting to look at. And as we start to make our way to the back of this minifigure, you can see a relatively detailed back print, which we'll be taking a better look at once we remove the fur collar. I also like the overall shape and design of Cinder's hairpiece that is included, as I feel like it's a relatively strong design with a lot of textured detail on it. And it does make me wish that the Nia and Lloyd minifigures came with their hairpieces as well. Removing his hairpiece and fur collar, we get a good look at his first facial expression, which depicts him being a little bit more stern. And as we start to make our way around to the back of the minifigure, we can get a good look at that awesome detailed back print as well as his second facial expression, which depicts him wearing a mask. Cinder also comes with this really cool sword as an accessory, and I do like its overall design, and I think it's a great inclusion to the minifigure. With all the minifigures out of the way, we're finally ready to talk about the main build that is included in this set, which is Lloyd's Elemental Power Mech. And I think overall this mech has a really strong design and a lot of really cool elements that make it unique to its overall appearance. Found at the top of the mech is a very simple yet effective samurai helmet build that is a really cool design choice in my opinion. Found at the center of the mech is this really nice circular printed piece that depicts a dragon's head that has a really cool design on it. I do think that the arm design for the mech is done relatively well. I do like the mix of green, black, gold, and red, as well as these transparent green pieces coming out of the arms of the mech, which I assume is meant to represent energy, which is Lloyd's element. The mech also comes with two swords as weapons. The sword that we're taking a look at first is the larger of the two, and it also has a tassel at the end. I also like this little bit of extra detail of this design found at the bottom of the blade. I think that's a really cool and neat touch. The second sword is a lot smaller and not as interesting to look at in my opinion, and personally I would have liked to have seen this mech have two of the larger swords. Found on the hands of the mech are two Technic holes that you can attach the sword with thanks to those Technic pieces that are sticking out of the swords themselves. It's a relatively straightforward and simple process, and once the swords are attached, they're not going to be going anywhere as they have a really strong connection. Another nice feature about this mech is the fingers have some articulation in them, so once you have the blade placed in, you can wrap the fingers around the handle. I do think that the design of the legs for this mech are done relatively well. However, I do wish there was a little bit more bulkiness on the bottom half of the leg right before the foot. This is a relatively minor complaint, and I also wish that there was a little bit more red on the bottom half of the leg as well. If we take a close look at the hips, you can see that there are clips found on both sides of the mech, and their purpose is to hold Lloyd's golden katanas. Placing the Lloyd minifigure into the mech is a relatively simple process. The samurai helmet can be lifted up and you can pull the chest piece down. This gives you plenty of room to grab your Lloyd minifigure and place him inside. Once you have him placed inside, you take the chest piece and raise it up, and then you can lower the helmet back down. And I do like how Lloyd looks once he's placed inside the mech. I feel like it's a relatively nice and neat look. And like I said before, I do like the samurai helmet and how it kind of rests right above his head. The mech does come with a pretty decent amount of range of motion. The shoulders are both on ball joints, which allows for them to be lifted up and rotated all around. And I do feel like that this is a necessary joint for this set to have for creative play for kids, as well as posability for collectors who want to display this mech on their shelf. Unfortunately, this mech does use the newer type of arms that LEGO has been using for the past couple years, so there's no articulation in the elbow. However, like I said earlier, the mech does come with some articulation in the fingers, which can make holding the sword a little bit more believable and realistic. Now moving on to the lower half of the mech, both of the legs are on ball joints, which allows for the legs to be rotated out to the side as well as forward and backwards. Having this articulation, of course, again, I think is necessary for posability and creative play for kids. However, I'm not as critical as the legs not having any knee range of motion because it does make the build a little bit more sturdy. And as you can see, the feet for the mech are also on ball joints, so they can be rotated around as well. And overall, like I said, I think the mech has some pretty decent range of motion. However, I really wish there was some articulation in the elbows. But with this set being primarily designed for kids, having that extra durability I do think is a nice inclusion for the longevity of this set. This set retails for $20, which I do think is a fair price for what you're getting. I do like the design of the mech overall, and while I am disappointed in the limited articulation, I do understand it for the stability and durability of this set. And I think that you're going to be getting 3 pretty good looking minifigures as well. And as always, I want to thank you so much for watching my review, and if you enjoyed the video, consider giving it a like and subscribing to my channel for future brick built reviews.